Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. You just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, Purple Daily on draft. Tyler Forness, Miles Gorham, Declan Goff here. Hit the like button, subscribe button for daily Vikings entertainment. Go check out our full episode of Judd and Phil's kind of camp notes and takeaways from the first preseason game. We're also going to get into some of those right here on Purple Daily on draft. Plenty of stuff to get into with these two guys. We'll have an announcement on the future of this show and the future of Tyler and Miles also still on Purple Daily, so stick around for that here in just a bit. But appreciate everyone listening, watching, and supporting Purple Daily on Draft every Monday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel and podcast feeds. All right, so 4-0 last week, you said we need to kind of pump the brakes. Vikings Nation, that is, needs to pump the brakes a little bit on JJ McCarthy being week 1 starter, just being ready to be an NFL everyday quarterback on the preseason game. And I love getting hyped up for preseason football and getting ridiculous highs and takeaways from this stuff. But McCarthy throws an interception early in the game, but then bounces back with a couple really nice touchdown throws, some good throws overall. What did you think of JJ McCarthy's preseason performance against the Raiders on Saturday?
I think he took a step forward, but we're kind of in the same spot. Look, you saw a lot of really good things. You saw him grow and develop. You saw him not worry so much about the interception and really take it in stride. And he had the post-game comments afterwards where he said, once I threw the pick, it was like my nerves were gone. And I thought that was really, really cool to hear from him. And we've heard about how he's this mentally tough kid and nothing really phases him. And you really saw a lot of that in college where the big stage didn't really mess with him at all. And it's good to see that that's continuing so far, because obviously preseason is not the regular season, but it is your NFL debut. You're going to get jitters, and he responded really well after the interception. I thought the interception itself was kind of like a 50-50 split. McCarthy probably shouldn't throw that ball. It's a ball you throw in college a lot because the defenders just aren't quite the athletes and you can gun it in there. If he throws a perfect ball, it's a catch. But Tristan Jackson's also drifting upfield instead of kind of keeping that route flat, which allowed Jack Jones to really get underneath and make an easy play on the ball. But the ball was also behind. You can't throw behind on it when you're in man coverage on a crossing route because that's just asking for trouble. After that, had that really nice throw to Tristan Jackson over the top on that crosser. And then right away, Kenny Nwangwu goes off tackle and gets a 48-yard touchdown. The deep ball to Tristan Jackson, I thought was a great route and great anticipation from McCarthy. And the Trent Sherfield one, that's a layup. That's a gift from God. You take those, and he gets credit for hitting it, but he also shouldn't really get that much credit because he hit one of the easiest throws he'll ever make in the National Football League. So overall, B+, A-. Thought there was a lot of good, some inconsistencies. I thought that really big red flag with some of that mechanical stuff happened after the interception where they're running that split zone play action. They ran it with Trent Sherfield, but they run a lot with Josh Oliver where they get him in the flat and then he runs for 10, 20 yards. He stops, flips his hips, and pistol whips it. You don't need to put a gallon of mustard on that ball. And that's something that rookies a lot of times have to learn. It's okay to have touch. It's okay to not whip every single ball in there. And I think that and some small mechanical inconsistencies that we saw that still be like, okay, he's not ready. But I feel more confident if you were to start him week 1, it's not going to be an adjunct disaster. And from an outside perspective, because you can't know everything unless you talk to these guys and you see them every single day, which is why when I talked about mental fortitude, it's always they have to be comfortable because rookie quarterbacks can be absolutely destroyed if they're not ready to handle failure. I feel a lot more comfortable from an outside perspective putting him in that position if they need to because of how he handled everything on Saturday.
I also feel, and we talked about some of the deep ball stuff before the mic too on the pass to Jackson. I think we didn't hear enough, and Judd brought this up too on Purple Dailies on the main show today. I don't think we heard enough, Miles, about McCarthy's arm strength. Like, I think that dude has a lot stronger arm than maybe we gave him credit for, or maybe like scouting reports had on him. He's a very athletic dude, and he can roll out, and he can do a lot of things. We saw that at Michigan. He's a smart guy. He's a leader. We knew all that stuff. I feel like the arm strength was not talked about enough? Were you kind of impressed with his arm strength on Saturday with some of those deep balls?
Yeah, and you could see it on tape at Michigan. Like not every throw, and I think this is one of the issues was not every throw was on target. Not every throw was like completely accurate, especially those deep crossers and deep throws to the left. But overall, like at the combine, what did he throw? The second fastest miles per hour, like ball behind Joe Milton, which nobody was going to beat Joe Milton in that. Like that dude's got a cannon. But like McCarthy, I think was second. And I'm not saying he has a stronger arm than Caleb Williams, but I think he's up there. He's got like Kirk Cousins always had an above average arm, but like it was never like the plus strength was never like that much above like probably league average. Whereas I think JJ McCarthy's got above average arm strength in the NFL, and I think that's a positive. Sam Darnold, same thing. I think that's the difference in what we're seeing between like Darnold and McCarthy versus like a Kirk Cousins is those guys have a stronger arm, so the ball might not always be pinpoint accurate, but they get a little bit more. They can get away with a little bit more because of the arm strength, and that Kirk couldn't. And I think there's some of that they'll get away with because of that arm strength, and obviously there's sometimes it'll be a problem like the McCarthy interception. But yes, McCarthy's got a really strong arm, and as you can tell, he can layer the ball over the field. And I think one of the big issues besides throwing the left was how he layers the football and putting touch on the ball in the intermediate routes. And we saw that on Saturday, and that was what excited me. It wasn't just the like cannons, the ones like the lasers across the middle. Like those are great. I think the stepping up in the pocket and moving around and maneuvering and throwing the missiles in the middle of the field is great. But we saw that all over his college tape. That wasn't surprising. It was the ones that were layered to the outside the numbers and outside the hash marks and things like those balls to me are the ones that I was like, okay, this guy's he's already progressing versus what we saw, I think, in the spring and the start of training camp. So those things are where I'm like really impressed. It was the arm strength was never a question for me. It may have been a question for some people, but like I think you could tell the arm strength was always there. It was more of the touch passes, like Forno mentioned on some of those that he still needs to work on. But the touch passes and I think the overall like layering the football and putting the ball right in the spot you expect him to. You saw a lot of those throws on Saturday in rhythm. And then I was also just excited about the fact that we got to see him maneuver the pocket. It's obviously his first preseason game. I'm not like, oh my God, like this dude's the next coming. But what I was excited about was just his ability to maneuver in the pocket. He's with backup players, backup receivers, everybody. And he still like looked comfortable maneuvering the pocket. And I think he's the type of player, once he gets into a rhythm, he's just the guy that like, he's a rhythm player like that. Once he's in that rhythm, it's full go. And I love that. And I'm just excited to see more of that as we move forward.
Did you like what he was able to do in the pocket too, Forno? I mean, his footwork, I know that's been a big topic of conversation with Kevin O'Connell and with Judd has noticed too, where he's trying to rework some of that footwork, which everyone loves to talk about arm strength. We just obviously had a deep dive on, but also there's those little things that onto the untrained eye, they kind of just forget about. Did you like what he was able to do in the pocket against the Raiders on Saturday?
Yeah, I will kind of elaborate a little bit on Miles' point about the arm strength. To me, his arm is really, really strong in the intermediate, but some of that stuff kind of dies when you're throwing deep. And I just think that caveat's important to know for people because it's not like he's going to pistol whip a 40-yarder. That's not his game. He's going to pistol whip those dig routes, and that's going to be huge for this offense.
But that's also mechanical too, I think, though, is the deep passes because he's got the arm strength to hit those 20-yard routes. To hit the 40-yarders, though, that I think to your point, maybe you're going to get here, so apologize, but I think that's mechanical. It's not that he doesn't have the arm strength to throw those. I just think it's like how he works on the mechanics to get those passes accurate.
I think there's different levels of arm strength, and he can hit the 40 and 50-yarders. He's the mechanical stuff it's a big reason why he was inaccurate a lot in those deep balls. And he can throw a 50-yarder. Teddy Bridgewater could throw a 50-yarder. All these guys can throw deep. It's how much zip can you have on the ball when you're throwing that deep? And I think he does lose a little bit when it goes from like that intermediate range where he has a very strong arm to those deep balls where I just think it's good. And I don't really see too big of an issue with that. Some guys like a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, they can pistol whip a ball 50, 60 yards. And it's like, what? It's like,
oh yeah, that's not his game.
That's not his game. And yeah. I think that's why the nuance I think is important. But I like that you mentioned the mechanics with some of the deep stuff because the mechanics, I haven't gotten an opportunity to really dive in hard into his mechanics from this weekend, but the some of the decision making on how to layer the football, like we talked about with that screen pass, that kind of stuff is going to keep presenting itself, and it's going to come with time. CJ Stroud was still making those mistakes in like week 13. Rookies have that. In college, a lot of times you can get away with just pistol whipping it because college is just such a different game with different kind of athletes, different schemes, different spacing. In the NFL, you have to be a lot more nuanced, and it's going to take him some time, and that is more than okay. He's got time to figure that out. And a lot of times those not only affects like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 throws a game, but those 3, 4, 5 throws could end up costing you a win or a loss.
Hey, but that deep touchdown to Tristan Jackson was right on the money. That was beautiful. That was a 45 yarder, maybe. I don't know exact yardage, but that was beautiful. Off the right hash too. I was just like, okay. Like, I saw that ball go in the air, and I was like, I winced just for a second, because you're like, is that going to be accurate? When you see a guy throw deep, you're like, is it going to be accurate? And that ball was right in the money in stride, touchdown. I was like, oh, okay, we're a little bit further ahead than I thought. So I was just impressed and really excited about that.
I think the most important
about a preseason game. It's crazy.
Yeah, the most important part about that throw, I thought, was the chemistry and anticipation, because McCarthy doesn't throw that unless he knows Jackson's going to be at a certain spot, and he knows that Jackson's going to be able to emphasize that double move. So it's kind of like a modified, like, I'm not going to call it a post corner, but he's running like a shade, just like 9 route, where he's kind of pushing the cornerback in. He gets the corner to have his hips positioned a certain way, and then takes it back slightly towards the corner and just creates that little bit of separation. He throws it early enough, McCarthy does, to where the safety can't get it, puts it in a great spot, and makes it super easy for Jackson. Jackson makes it super easy for McCarthy. That's the kind of stuff you would see with like Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, because that's a chemistry throw. That is something I know that you're going to be doing this. I know you're going to be at that spot, and I feel comfortable making that anticipatory throw to where I don't believe that these defenders are going to be even close. He threw that ball when Jackson was still angling towards the corner, and he even had come close to make his break yet. That's some high-level stuff, and that's going to come with guys like Jefferson and Addison. And when that does come, that's when you get the kind of special stuff. Think of Aaron Rodgers throwing those stop routes to Jordy Nelson that just pissed us off for almost a decade. That's what we're talking about. We're talking high-level chemistry kind of stuff. And if he's got it with Jackson, who is a lesser talent than those other guys, what happens when he gets it with the uber-talented ones? That's where the excitement should be. And have all of it, guys. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I remember the training camp, and Miles, were you with the Vikings in 2016 or no?
No,
okay. I bet we all remember the preseason and training camp hype, that not even hype, the visuals that were on the field with Teddy of, oh my God, this is not the check down artist. This is not the game manager. There's a level upgrade here. We have upgraded at quarterback, and
that Chargers game, man.
We get cheeky sometimes with preseason observations, but the Chargers game was on display. The notes and the observations from practice were there, kind of putting this forward into 2024. I mean, this is about as excited as I know. A lot of people never believed. Some people still didn't believe in Teddy, even despite that strong preseason showing before, obviously, his leg snaps. But this is, at least for me, Miles, like the most excited I have been about the Vikings' future, and especially at quarterback, probably since then. And back from that, maybe like Brett Favre's first tenure here. These are uncharted territories, I feel like, for a lot of Vikings fans over the last 20 years looking for something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a quarterback, right? I feel like the only other like handful of players that non-quarterback was like Adrian Peterson. That was really exciting. Randy Moss, like those types of names. But otherwise, it's quarterback. Those are the names that you're like really excited about. You want to see in the preseason and how they progress, because that we all know that's the most important position in football and in sports. And if that guy hits, then you can be the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens of the league. Like, you'll have sustained success typically because you have that guy. And that's so important. And I think the fans in Minnesota are so starved for that. It's just been so long since we've had it. We thought we had it with Teddy, and then his leg snaps, right? Like you talked about. Ponder, I don't think there was ever a time that it was felt like it was. Tavares Jackson, bust. Like Dante Culpepper was probably the last true homegrown guy for multiple seasons. And so it's like, okay, with JJ McCarthy and you spending the 10th overall pick, that comes with huge excitement. And like as someone that really wants that, you want to take advantage of not just the rookie contract, but like a guy with high upside. Like that's where the excitement comes from for me. And like you see all the throws, you see all the excitement. And McCarthy just kind of has that energy about him. That's where I felt with Teddy too, is like guys want to rally around him. And that's just such an underrated part of being a quarterback and a leader, is like guys just like that, having that camaraderie and that relationship with guys in the locker room. It's so important. Like when guys have nothing but positive things to say about you on and off the field, like that to me just means takes it to even the next level. And so I think McCarthy's got all of that. And I think that's just what also is really exciting. It's not just about the play on the field. It's just like guys rallying. Like Justin Jefferson, I think that first touchdown, he was doing the Paul Allen interview on the sideline. And just how excited that dude got for not just Tristan Jackson, but JJ McCarthy, and just like watching all of that. It was just so fun to see like the players and his teammates be as excited and rallied around that. Because they know that like how important this is for them too. Justin Jefferson knows JJ McCarthy being good is a positive for Justin Jefferson. And so it's just really exciting. And yeah, I'm with you. I've not been this excited about preseason. Yeah, probably since Teddy Bridgewater 2016, and then obviously his rookie year 2014.
So transition to Darnold. So Sam Darnold gets also, a little bit of a crack and a little bit of a taste. He starts for the Vikings. Obviously, I feel lost in all of this shuffle is Sam Darnold, who I know he had a nice drive, gets stalled out there near the goal line, but what did we like from Sam Darnold, Forno? Was there still enough to like about and be excited about as a potential starting quarterback for the Vikings in Week 1?
Absolutely. You should be very excited about Darnold as the potential starter in Week 1 based off of what we saw on Saturday. He looked calm, confident, was whipping the ball. That digger out to Jalen Naylor was fantastic. Layered it right over a linebacker. It even had a lot of the film guys on Twitter like, am I really going to do this again with Sam Darnold? Yeah, you're going to do it again because he looks really good. You can look at the 4 for 8. I think it was 54 yards. Ty Chandler dropped 2 passes. Blatantly dropped them. Hit him right in the hands. If it hits you in the hands, you better bring that ball in. And they get that 4th down. I think that probably would be a touchdown if Ty Chandler just holds onto the football. Like, is Darnold this high-level player where he's going to be a top 10 quarterback for any amount of time? Probably not. But I think you could easily have a Geno Smith type renaissance with Sam Darnold. And if you get that, that's going to take things to a different level with this team. And it's going to continue to allow you to nurture JJ McCarthy. Because remember, Pat Mahomes started 1 game his rookie year. They didn't play like any of their starters. And Mahomes threw for like 206 yards and a pick. Next year, those 50 touchdowns, MVP. It's okay to let the quarterback incubate if you don't have to play them. And right now, Darnold is giving us all indications that they don't have to play McCarthy, which is an incredible luxury to have. Because the last few practices that I was at showed a lot of improvement. Though, like that Friday, Saturday practice, the prior weekend, he outshined JJ McCarthy, and it wasn't even close. He's developing chemistry with these guys. And we have to remember, he's coming into a new organization and a new system. This isn't Sam Darnold already having been the incumbent. This isn't Kirk Cousins. Cousins has all that. Darnold's still doing that and learning all that, just like McCarthy is. So for him to be continuing to grow and develop like this gives me a lot of hope.
On the defensive side here, so taking a look at what's going on defensively for the Vikings. Dwight McLaughlin gets run with the first team out of some practices this week, or leading up to the first game. The Vikings will be traveling to Cleveland for some joint practices tomorrow. But Dwight McLaughlin wasn't noticed in a good way. This happens sometimes, by the way, with hockey players, like especially with rookies and debuts. If you're not noticing him, that's a good thing. He's not getting exposed. He's not putting his team in poor positions. I feel like Dwight McLaughlin not being noticed on Saturday, Miles, was actually a good thing for the Vikings and for his future of making the 53 or maybe even making an impact on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, cornerback like offensive line. If they're not talking about you, that sometimes can be a good thing. That means especially at corner, if you're not getting targeted a lot, it doesn't always mean that you're like in lockdown coverage, but that means they're not looking your way, and that's a good thing. Like at least you can go to the film room and say, hey, ain't nobody put nothing on tape on me. Like Like they might have some routes on them. I didn't see like all 22 and anything like that. But yes, I think the positive is there wasn't any like big plays on him. There wasn't anything you're like, oh man, there goes Dwight McLaughlin getting roasted every other play. Like obviously cornerback's a big concern for this team. That's why they're bringing in Stephon Gilmore for a visit. I'm hoping they sign him. But like there's a lot of like concern there and worry, but McLaughlin's a guy that maybe there's a chance he sticks as the sixth cornerback, as like that developmental guy that plays special teams, and who knows, but I think it's a positive. Like again, I would have to go back to watch the tape, but I think not seeing any negatives from the like watching live is a positive, like you said. So it's exciting. I don't know what else is in store for him, but I think we've seen some plays here and there during camp, and I think they're just a little bit of like that small buzz from a UDFA that's always exciting, especially at a position that desperately needs it.
So also Bo Richter showed up 4-0. Levi Drake Rodriguez also continues to kind of motor and roll a little bit there too. I feel Dallas Turner. A lot of good. That entire room looks really good. I mean, even though the Vikings lose Danielle Hunter in free agency, which is still probably the best player, on that defense, you lose them, but now you replenish the cupboards a little bit with some unproven guys, and it makes you a little bit deeper. I guess what else did you stood out to you on defensively for the Vikings on Saturday 4-0?
I'm going to talk about Richter and Rodriguez here in a second, but I want to shout out Jalen Redmond, the guy that they signed from the Arlington Renegades of the UFL. A lot of grimy, dirty work, but was really good and pivotal in helping really help out some of those guys make plays. And you have to have those guys who do the grimy, dirty work. That's how nose tackles make money. They make things easier for everybody else, and Redmond did a lot of that. Richter, he played like people thought, myself included, Andre Carter would play. Carter he's got the body, he's got the length, he does not have the strength or nuance really at this point to be any kind of difference maker. Richter looked like he could be, and he was a 99.9th percentile athlete per relative athletic score coming out as an edge rusher, has played some inside linebacker as well. There were some questions. Well, is he going to be a linebacker? Is he going to be an edge rusher? And I think he showed that he should be an edge rusher. A little bit of shorter arms. I think they're somewhat close to Gabriel Murphy's. I want to say like 31 or 31 and a half inches, which is short, but he's got the size. He's got the build. He's got actual strength. Even though he also came from a service academy at Air Force, it didn't look like he was strength deficient, which was great to see. Then Levi Drake Rodriguez, that motor. I've heard like 5 people now call him a Tasmanian devil. And he's not Australian, but the hair definitely kind of helps with that comparison. The motor just runs hot. And he got a sack, I believe it was as a looper and a stunt, which is hilarious because they're going to have him play more nose tackle that he was a looper, which I love that kind of stuff. It's perfect. And he got a pass breakup, just crashing the middle, and just played some really, really good football. There's a reason why the Vikings fell in love with him. And if you can get any kind of production this year out of a 7th round pick, what a home run for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, is Andre Carter and some of these other UDFAs that we've talked about, like, is Andre Carter being blocked out a little bit here, Miles? Like, do we think he has a good shot at even still making the 53? He was a darling going into camp last year. There were still high hopes for this year. Do we still think probably a long shot, or maybe not as secured of making the 53 this year?
Yeah, I think he's more of a practice squad guy this year. Really feels like him and Bo Richter and Gabriel Murphy, which it's unfortunate Murphy wasn't able to play on Saturday, but he's a guy that sounds like he's had a good camp too. And so I feel like those are 2 guys that could kind of usurp Andre Carter while he continues to develop in the background, because those guys seem a little bit more ready than Carter does. And even in year 2 for Carter, maybe he sticks on the practice squad, but yeah, I don't see him making the 53 with kind of the depth, which is like a sneaky positive that we haven't seen. The Vikings have pretty solid depth at outside linebacker now that they kind of didn't have, with Andy Van Ginkel, Grenard, Dallas Turner, and then Patrick Jones as being your top 4 guys. That's a good rotation right there. And then you have these other developmental guys in Murphy, Richter, and Andre Carter. So it's exciting to kind of see where they've been able to like develop those areas. And I think at least one of those 2 will stick between Richter and Murphy, maybe both, just because you don't want to risk losing both those guys or risk losing one of those guys to waivers. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really uphill battle for Andre Carter to make the roster at this point.
What other UDFAs or other rookies or second-year players 4-0 kind of have more to prove here as the Vikings begin a joint practice with Cleveland? They'll have a couple more games, too, before the 53 cuts come in a couple weeks. I guess what other players need to kind of stand out here and show what they're worth to the Vikings of making the 53-man roster?
I think two guys, Jaquan Roy and Brian Asamoah the second. And Roy kind of came in with a little bit of fanfare. Now, he was drafted in the 5th round of 2023, but going into that 2022 season, he was projected by many to be a first-round pick. That LSU defense was an abomination, which is just wild to think about when they have so many NFL players on it, but they were just atrocious. Roy slides to the 5th round. It doesn't play a ton last year, gets some reps, but overall just isn't quite there. And the hope was that he would be able to take this massive step forward this year. So far, that hasn't happened. And he's mixed in with the ones during training camp. Really hasn't stood out to me at all. Didn't stand out to me at all during the game on Saturday. And he posted one of the lowest PFF grades that the Vikings had. Now, PFF grades aren't everything, but they give you a baseline for what to kind of look for and look at. And it's not good. Like, we would expect him to be a little bit further along. Asamoah had a really good practice from what I've been seeing. And he's flying all over the field. He's making plays, getting tackles for loss, pass breakup, getting physical and having no problem doing so. He nearly started a fight with Johnny Munt, which was hilarious. Kudos to his teammates for stopping Munt, because Asamoah was just like, I just pounced him right on the sideline, and Munt did not like it, which I don't blame him.
I like training camp. I like training camp tussles. Those are fun.
Oh, me too. Fun fact. Teams will get fined if they're joint practice tussles, but not if there are tussles in your own building. The Seahawks last week had 5 in one practice. That's the kind of stuff I like. That's old school football, baby. But if Asamoah wants to make this team and really become a contributor, he's got to stay more consistent. He's got to do a lot of the things that he wasn't doing over the first 2 years. And one of those things is just being a consistent tackler. In the Vic Fangio scheme, it's a gang tackle kind of philosophy, where if I miss, somebody's going to be right there to clean up my mess. In Flores, you got to make the tackle. If you don't make the tackle, it could be a disaster, and it could be a disaster very quickly. So I did like what I saw during training camp, but he's got to continue to show more, because Dallas Gant looked pretty good. I don't know if he's necessarily an NFL quality linebacker. Former 4-star that went to Ohio State, transferred to Toledo, viewed as more of a special teams guy. He was the Vikings' #1 player with per PFF grade on defense. And when I get to the defensive film, I'm going to have a lot of eyes on Gant to kind of see what he was doing. And maybe there's something more there than we thought.
I love joint practices, too, as you guys were just kind of talking about. There's going to be some tussles. Hopefully nothing that results in fines, but I feel like it's inevitable. Someone's going to get fined for something. But I think these joint practices are fun. I wish it was more in the backyard than it is, obviously, in Cleveland, where the Vikings will be away basically for the next week. But, I mean, these joint practices are also a big proving ground, too, right, Miles, for guys to make the roster, to stand out like that. Right. In fact, it might even be more important than showing up in a preseason game, which is what we've kind of learned over the years of these identifiers in practice and these joint practices even. These are the big things that make guys stand out a little bit more, and where the Vikings and Browns, too, can kind of show some things that, are a little bit more hidden and not necessarily on camera for everyone to see.
Right. Well, you get more reps. I mean, overall, like, obviously there'll be times where it's just first team versus first team, and the backups and those depth players aren't going to get a lot of run. But there's going to be plenty of time throughout this week of joint practices where they're going to get a lot of run, and those guys that are on the roster bubble are going to get to prove themselves or miss out. So it's a really important time. But I think the cornerbacks against their wide receivers, I think the Browns have done a good job kind of rebuilding their wide receiver room. So I think it'll be a good test for the Vikings. Will Stephon Gilmore be there with Minnesota? Like, who knows? But I think it's a really good opportunity for guys like Dwight McLaughlin. And this is where, like, also teams like to poach. So, like, maybe there's a couple – I haven't looked at the Browns roster in depth ahead of this, but maybe there's a few guys on the roster bubble for the Browns that the Vikings have their eye on that they like to see up close too. I think it allows both teams to kind of get a good gauge on rosters and guys. So I think if there's a position you want to fill, maybe you talk trade, maybe you just, wait if they get cut. But I think it's just a good opportunity for everybody. This is where my guess, at least, I don't know how Kevin O'Connell is going to handle it, but my guess is with Sam Darnold getting a lot of run in this, he probably won't play in the preseason. I know Justin Jefferson's not playing the preseason. I know Harrison Smith's not playing the preseason. Like those guys, that's fine. But like that's where these practices, you get a lot of run in these, and then you let the young guys and the roster bubble guys play in the preseason the whole game, so they get a lot of run there if they're not getting run in the practice too. So lots of opportunities. These joint practices give a lot more opportunity for the roster bubble guys to really get run. If it's not in practice, then it'll be on set. I think the game's on Saturday, whenever the preseason game is. So at least it's like a win-win for both guys to get starters and backups to get opportunities.
Yeah, stick around too if there's any Stephon Gilmore news right here on Purple Daily. We'll be ready to break that down. I got a night practice on Monday before the Vikings hit the road, and we'll head to Cleveland basically for the week. We teased this on the top of the show, so here's the future of Purple Daily on Draft. We are going to, I guess, sunset this show, I think is the word that I keep hearing from Mackie. We're going to sunset this show for the regular season. We will likely still be bringing this show back in the offseason when the regular season is over to build up for draft and whatnot. However, Miles and Forno are not going away. You will see Miles on the Before I Die show with Judd and Jesse. I believe AJ Fredrickson also joined the fold on that with who's one of our other producers. Forno will still be with Judd. Meat and potatoes, where Forno and Judd can basically do exactly what I just said. It's meat and potatoes, fork and knife. So all that action coming at you on Thursdays. I believe Before I Die on Monday or Tuesday, starting next week as well. So these guys are still going to be here. Obviously, I'll still be involved with everything Purple Daily related and Vikings Vent Line too. But I just wanted to give the audience an announcement there. I know I've had a blast. All three of us have had a blast doing this show together for like basically the last 14 months or so. I think it's kind of how us three have been doing it. It goes back with Thor as well, who's with us every Thursday on Purple Daily. So I had a blast doing this, guys, and we'll still resume this show. We're just going to take a little time out on it as we kind of refigure our offense here on Purple Daily.
Yeah,
same. It's been great.
This show's been a brainchild of mine for a long time, and it's been really cool to be able to kind of bring it to reality for however long we'll continue to do it moving forward.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. And Miles, I know you kind of joined in here a few months into the first edition of Purple Daily on Draft with Thor, so appreciate your insight and always coming on here, man. It's been a blast having you on the show. Excited for you and Judd and Jesse, man. That's going to be a fun show, too, Before I Die.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be great.
Hell yeah. So hit the like button, subscribe button, Purple Daily on Draft on Purple Daily YouTube channel and podcast feed. We just still want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die. JJ McCarthy is hopefully a part of that plan. Thanks, guys.